So you grew up in Atlanta.
I grew up in Atlanta.
Now, did you always think, one of these days I'm going to be a judge?
No, not at all. I probably actually thought I would be in a Hollywood movie before I became a judge. It was the journey to becoming a judge was very interesting. However, in Atlanta, I was the supervisor of the municipal court system in the city of East Point, which was at the time the 7th largest city in Georgia. And I loved it, and I excelled from there. I didn't stay there long because I over-exceeded the boundary, so I had to continue to move on. But born and raised in Atlanta during the Civil Rights era.
And what was it like living in Atlanta when you were growing up over there?
It was wonderful. I lived across the street from Martin Luther King Sr. I went to high school with his children and his nieces and nephews. I learned a lot during that time. They often, had the meetings and things and gatherings there, and I would be in the living room with Andrew Young, John Lewis, just all the great names. And all the children would be running around them playing while they're making all of these great plans. And dinner cooking over there on the side. We go outside and play on the swing. And the next Saturday or whatever day, here we are. in this big event that we were part of, but we didn't understand that much at that time. But it was wonderful. I loved it. It shaped who I am today. Because I was growing, things were starting to happen to me that affected me, where I had to come home and ask my parents why and what was going on. And of course they would sit down, they always sat us down and explained to us exactly what was taking place and what we needed to do or not to do. But they had to go into depth as we got older, because we were faced upon it one-on-one.
Did you see it getting better as you got older, and did you watch the change happen while you were?
Yes, I did. And Atlanta was, from my understanding and having lived in other places, even though that may have been a center point of the civil rights era, we still, because it was such a bigger area, we may have been, the word is not shielded, it's just we had the important people right there in our neighborhoods. So we understood it from a very young age, and we just knew what we needed to do, and our posture on how we dealt with it may have been different from if you were in a smaller town. There were so many times when they would be out of town that we would have to watch their house, and especially during Christmas time. And there were many times when my mother and father would decorate their house, and they would just go buy the things and put it on their house and tell them we have everything covered for you, give them a call. And we have a lot of mementos. We have council checks that they have given us, because telegrams, I believe, what was it? Oh, it was the telegrams back then. I can't think of the name of the yellow telegram. We have those, signed books, signed, just so many mementos. Also, when he did pass away, we had a function at our home where people came in and gave their condolences to the family. That is something that you would never forget, and the emotion would never leave you. He was a great man. He was sent here, that was his purpose. We understood that may be something, and he explained that, and he knew that was going to be something that ended up happening. He was very aware of it, but it never goes away. It's hard, it's still hard today. I can still hear his laughter, and I can still hear him calling each one of his children, telling them to come there, and he would grab them. He was a jokester also. He loved his children, and he loved playing games with them. So I remember that, and I remember the laugh, the big laugh, and I always said he had jolly eyes. His eyes just popped. They had purpose, but you could see the happiness in his eyes, the positive attitude. And that's what gets you where you need to go in life today. It's, you're going to be confronted with life every day, all day, but it's how you deal with it. You turn negatives into positives, and you turn them into opportunities. And that's what I did to get where I am today. Every door that was open and or closed, I looked at as an opportunity. And I turned negatives around. Okay, that wasn't the door I was supposed to go through. Let me create another path. And that's exactly what I did. I don't hear the word no. No is just that, it's a word. But it's not the end all for me. It's for me to get on another path and to begin going down that road. I always knew that I was going to go into an area where I spoke, believe it or not. Now, believe it or not, just as I'm extremely introverted. And just a side note, Martin Luther King was an introvert also. But it's being in touch with who you are. And my mother always told me that I was an old soul. Even when I was a little girl in elementary school, I wanted to hang around my mother and her friends and speak. They would just be sitting around and talking. And I would sit right there quietly listening, of course, to every conversation they said. And I would want to go on the bus trips with them. And it's just, I was an old soul, and I was always trying to resolve issues. I wanted to resolve people's issues. And I noticed very early on that when I spoke to people, they actually listened. And they would come back and tell me, you know what? That really worked. And I went, well, great. That is wonderful. Now, let's go climb that tree. I did start out with automatic data processing, which is called ADP. It's the largest payroll company in the nation. And I was a computer programmer there for the payroll system. And then from there, I went to the city of East Point. And with the city of East Point, I have to remember, that was so long ago. I was the first African American to be city clerk, since the census coordinator, and superintendent of elections. And I also there, of course, as I stated previously, was the municipal supervisor for the court system. And from there, I went to what is now Point University. And at Point University, I was the first African American holding the highest position there as registrar and director of developmental learning, and also on the board of admissions. And oh my goodness, from there, I came here. And my husband, I helped my husband out. He has a mentoring program. And so
Tell me about your husband's mentoring program.
Yes, it's...
Who's your husband's name?
Tony Eubanks, or he's known as Anthony Eubanks here, and worked with Clemson University, the football team, as the chaplain, and spiritual tour days. And it was a mentoring program. Just as the players work out 2 times a day, it was, you have a spiritual workout 2 times a day as well. And he actually had a mentor for each individual who wanted a mentor. And it was any part of their life to be there for them, because being in college and also an athlete is extremely difficult.
How did you become the first African American magistrate judge in Anderson County?
We had what was past Lieutenant Governor Bryant He did select me, and there are hundreds that are wishing to get in this type of position. And he came to me, and he knew about my background. He asked about the background, and we just meshed well. And there's a process that you have to go through, and you have to be, of course, approved by the Senate and the governor. And you go through this process every 4 years. Will be going on my 9th year, and I am the first African American female for the county of Anderson in the state of South Carolina, as well as the first African American associate chief judge, as well as the first African American president of the Upstate Judicial Association. And there are possibly, 5 committees that I'm on for the state judgeship. But it was a long, tedious process, but this is a passion. I am able to, with my rulings, I try to have people to understand where they are in the system. Because if you really look at the world today, all of us could just be in a situation. You are wrong place, wrong time. Not necessarily part of it, but it's just wrong place, wrong time. So you have to, pick wisely who you hang out with, and just stand firm in your beliefs. When they come before me, there's always going to be someone who wins a case, someone who loses a case. You try, and that's basically in civil. I try to make it to where, number one, if they cannot come to a consensus, because a lot of times it's the lack of communication, and they want to be heard. There are many times where I've actually had them to leave my courtroom and they have come to an agreement. It's just they need a place to be able to communicate with each other and hear each other, and that's the key. So it can sometimes be, when you make a ruling, it is what it is by the law. And you understand that that may have been their first offense, but because they broke the law, there are repercussions. And you just hope that they learn from the situation and that they don't continue to go down that road. You want better for everyone, but sometimes everyone just isn't there yet. They have to be there. You can't force them. You can only get them to think. I can't make them do anything. I can only get them to think about their situation and try to be better.
You moved here from a much bigger place.
Mm-hmm.
What have you thought about living in Anderson the last decade?
I absolutely love it. Believe it or not, I am a big city girl with a small town heart. But Anderson isn't a small town. But I, in the end, wish to go to the mountains and settle and retire in the mountains and have my horse and my dog, and I will be happy. I've absolutely loved being here in Anderson.
Well, you said that. How much longer do you think you want to be a judge?
Until they kick me to the curb.
So you're not going anywhere until they ask you to get on your horse and ride to the mountains.
Exactly right. Exactly right. We have to retire at the age of 72. So I have a few more years. And I don't look or I plan to go anywhere. But as long as they have me, I will be here.
But your friends from Atlanta, they say, why are you living in Anderson, South Carolina? What do you tell them about Anderson?
I tell them it's a great town, and you actually get to breathe. You get life. You have life, but you're able to enjoy it. Atlanta is busy, busy, busy. I remember living in Atlanta, even in the 80s, my job was 30 minutes away, and it would take me 2 hours to get to work. And that was with no accident. So you get to live and enjoy life instead of life beating you at your door, and all you're trying to do is get home so you can settle down, and by that time it's too late because now you got to go to bed, wake up, start the same thing. I get to enjoy life here. And the games help. The games and I love all the concerts at the Civic Center, and it's just wonderful. I'm close by the mountains. I can go on the lake. I can go to the mountains, which I love and do often, and I do my horseback riding. And I love it.
Do you have like a philosophy of life or something that you've raised your kids and stuff to try to remember, or if you had somebody maybe even come in your courtroom and you feel like you could help them? Is there something you try to tell people that would help them put them on a better path?
The first thing is that you're not a product of your circumstances, that you are a product of your choices. And that is very key. And I've tried to tell my boys that and raise them that way, that your choices determine your future.
You have 2 sons, right?
2 sons, yes, yes. And always to treat others as you wish to be treated, because you don't know their circumstances and what they've had to go through to get where they are today. And you have to understand everyone's different. That's what makes the United States what it is today. Everyone is different, and you have to respect that. And so I make sure that they understand and treat people fairly. That is key. That is key. And to listen. Sometimes people just want to be heard. We're so busy nowadays. We are trying to finish other people's sentences and not let them talk. Now, I remember growing up where from the moment I got up, I had to go outside and play. Don't come in until the street lights come on. And we didn't. And we enjoyed. We would drink the water out of the water hose and then go back out into the neighborhood and play. And all of the neighbors were our parents. If something happened, the neighbor down the street, my mother already knew before I got home. And the neighbor down the street could tell me no and not get in trouble. So that's, nowadays, we go to work, we get in our cars, go home, pull into the garage, close the door. You don't even know your neighbor's name. And that is sad. So I raised my boys old school. And they are they're old souls as well. They even listen to old music. But, and they love jazz and they love the 60s and 70s music. But they know that it's important to communicate. And both of them in school, they graduated 4-year colleges, and both of them majored in business and communications as well, because I spoke so much on how it is important to talk. To communication is key. And when people, you can have your differences, but if you know how to talk to people, everything you can be heard and things can be resolved. You may not agree with them, but that's okay.
Do you feel like a lot of times the people you see coming before you, nobody's ever taught them that? They haven't heard that message?
The world, they may have heard the message. It's just the world that we live in today is moving so quickly, and especially with social media, that it gets lost. And you get in the midst of what's going on in today's society, and it gets very difficult to pull away from it. So you have to have people surrounding you that are constantly keeping you on that level playing field of understanding. That's not real. That's not real. You need to stay on this playing field. Don't go there, because that's just something that will carry you in a different arena that is not good. It's not good, because that world is just, it's unexplainable, but because it's not real. What's on TV, what's on the media nowadays with regards to, the film or magazines has been altered. So our perception of what's real in life today, we have no clue. We want perfection. Life is not perfection. It's not perfection. In fact, you learn and you grow from your imperfections.
And how do you maintain hope that things can get better in light of all that?
That's the only thing you can do. You have to hold on to something. You have to. Even in the world today, is so much going on. You have to maintain and hope that there is a better future for our children. It's got to be. We have no other options. We have no other options. We have to.